Madam Speaker, when was the last time anyone ever asked you for $700 billion? It's a staggering figure. And many questions have arisen from that request, and we have been hearing, I think, a very informed debate on all sides of this issue here today. I'm proud of the debate. $700 billion, a staggering number, but only a part of the cost of the failed Bush economic policies. And how did it sneak up on us so silently, almost on little cat's feet?
Mr. Chairman, we do not have a crisis at Freddie Mac, and in particular at Fannie Mae, under the outstanding leadership of Mr. Frank Rain. Everything in the 1992 Act has worked just fine. In fact, the GSEs have exceeded their housing goals. What we need to do today is to focus on the regulator, and this must be done in a manner so as not to impede their affordable housing mission, a mission that has seen innovation flourish from desktop underwriting to 100% loans.
And we must insulate Main Street from Wall Street. And as Congresswoman Waters said, Martin Luther King Drive, and in my district, Martin Luther King Drive and Cesar Chavez Road, and all of the manifestations of community and small businesses in our community. We must insulate them from that.
This hearing is about the political lynching of Franklin Rain. I find this to be inconsistent and a rush to judgment. I get the feeling that the markets are not worried about the safety and soundness of Fannie Mae, as Ofeo says that it is, but of course the markets are not political.
They claim to be free market advocates when it's really an anything goes mentality. No regulation, no supervision, no discipline.
Good morning, members of the Congressional Black Caucus. I am humbled to come here today to reaffirm the friendship and the partnership between Fannie Mae and the Congressional Black Caucus. Fannie Mae is determined to keep tearing down the barriers to deliver on the American dream, and that means we need to work together with the CBC. So many of you have been good friends to Fannie Mae and our mission. You've been friends through thick and thin. We have indeed come upon a difficult time for Fannie Mae. There is much to be done inside my company, and I humbly ask you to help us and to help me. If there are areas where we are missing, if there are areas where we can do better, we'd like to hear it from our friends, and I'd be so bold as to say our family first.
And as well as the fact that I'm just pissed off at Ofeo, because if it wasn't for you, I don't think that we'd be here in the first place. And now the problem that we have and that we're faced with is maybe some individuals who wanted to do away with GSEs in the first place, you've given them an excuse to try to have this forum so that we can talk about it and maybe change the direction and the mission of what the GSEs had, which they've done a tremendous job. There's been nothing that was indicated that's wrong, you know, with Fannie Mae. Freddie Mac has come up on its own, and the question that then presents is the competence that your agency has with reference to deciding and regulating these GSEs. And so I wish I could sit here and say that I'm not upset with you, but I am very upset because, you know, what you do is you give, you know, maybe giving a reason to, as Mr. Gonzalez said, to give someone a heart surgery when they really don't need it. What would make you, why should I have confidence? Why should anyone have confidence in you as a regulator at this point?
Sorry, Congressman, Ofeo did not improperly apply accounting rules. Freddie Mac did. Ofeo did not try to manage earnings improperly. Freddie Mac did. So this isn't about the agency engaging in improper conduct. It's about Freddie Mac.
It is true that Fannie Mae has lent more money to more minorities and more underserved individuals than any single company in history.
Of this institution about the willfulness of practices that may or may not be in controversy. You've imputed various motives to the people running the organization. You went to the board and put a 48-hour ultimatum on them. without having any specific regulatory authority to put that kind of ultimatum on them, that sounds like some kind of an invisible line has been crossed.
For too long, this government, in 8 years, has followed a right-wing ideology of anything goes, no supervision, no discipline, no regulation. Again, all of us are believers in free markets, but we have to do it right.
In addition to our important oversight role in this committee, I hope that we will move swiftly to create a new regulatory structure for Fannie Mae, for Freddie Mac, and the Federal Home Loan Banks. There is a very simple solution. Congress must create a new regulator with powers at least equal to those of other financial regulators, such as the OCC or the Federal Reserve.
And we passed Sarbanes-Oxley, which was a very tough response to that. And then I realized that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac wouldn't even come under it. They weren't under the 34 Act. They weren't under the 33 Act. They play by their own rules, and I'm tempted to ask how many people in this room are in the payroll of Fannie Mae, because what they do is they basically hire every lobbyist they can possibly hire. They hire some people to lobby, and they hire some people not to lobby so that the opposition can't hire them. Fannie Mae has manipulated, in my judgment, OFEO for years. And for OFEO to finally come out with a report as strong as it is tells me that's got to be the minimum, not the maximum.
It is indeed a very troubling report, but it is a report of extraordinary importance, not only to those who wish to own a home, but as to the taxpayers of this country who would pay the cost of the cleanup of an enterprise failure. The analysis makes clear that more resources must be brought to bear to ensure the highest standards of conduct are not only required, but more importantly, they are actually met.
Mr. Raines, $1.1 million bonus on a $526,000 salary. Jamie Gorelick, $779,000 bonus on a salary of $567,000. And this is what you state on page 11 is nothing less than staggering. The 1998 earnings per share number turned out to be $3.23 and 9 mils. A result that Fannie Mae met the EPS maximum payout goal right down to the penny. Fannie Mae understood the rules and simply chose not to follow them. That if Fannie Mae had followed the practices, there wouldn't have been a bonus that year.
And you have about 3% of your portfolio set aside. If a bank gets below 4%, they are in deep trouble. So I just want you to explain to me why I shouldn't be satisfied with 3%.
Because banks there aren't any banks who only have multifamily and single-family loans. These assets are so riskless that their capital for holding them should be under 2%.
Working together, we put together some standards, and I am really proud of what Barney Frank did in this regard. The first night, that Thursday night when we got the very, very dismal news, he immediately said, if we're going to do this, and Spencer Baucus was a part of this as well, in terms of if we're going to do this, we must have equity for the American people.
My name is Barney Frank. I'm from Massachusetts. I'll be chairman of the Committee on Financial Services, which has a fairly broad jurisdiction over banking and insurance, but also housing. Specifically, I hope to deal in part with the housing crisis part of this. The committee that I'll be chairing has jurisdiction over housing, and we hope very much to do an increase in the housing stock so housing becomes affordable both for low-income people, but also for people in the moderate income range.
Now, let me again acknowledge the extraordinary leadership of Mr. Frank. He has been an exceptional leader in the Congress, but never has his knowledge and his experience and his judgment been more needed than now. And I thank you, Mr. Frank, for your exceptional leadership, Mr. Chairman.
Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are not in a crisis. More people, in my judgment, exaggerate a threat of safety and soundness. The more people conjure up the possibility of serious financial losses to the Treasury, which I do not see. I think we see entities that are fundamentally sound financially and withstand some of the disaster scenarios. And even if there were a problem, the federal government doesn't bail them out. But the more pressure there is there, then the less I think we see in terms of affordable housing, et cetera. You seem to be saying, well, these are in areas which could raise safety and soundness problems. I don't see anything in your report that raises safety and soundness problems. But I have seen nothing in here that suggests that the safety and soundness are at issue, and I think it serves us badly to raise safety and soundness as a kind of a general shibboleth when it does not seem to me to be an issue.
Not recognize that this this legislation is not the end of the line. Mr. Waxman will be having vigorous oversight this week, hearings this week on regulatory reform and other aspects of it. I hope you will pursue fraud and mismanagement and the rest. Mr. Frank and his committee will continue to pursue other avenues that we can stabilize the markets and protect the taxpayer.